Okay, thank you very much for joining tonight's webinar. My name is Graham Dougall. I'm the race officer for the Lake Ontario Offshore Racing. And this is the last in a series of 3 webinars to bring up key points that we felt that the potential racers need to know about. So we'll now get going and moving along. Just make sure that you realize that everybody knows that we're recording this. So and it'll be posted on the internet. So your continued participation provides your approval for this. Some webinar ground rules. We'll keep everybody muted except the presenters until it's time to ask a question. We'll leave the questions till specific points during the session. The process will be that you can raise your virtual Zoom hand. We'll show you that in a moment. And then we'll take people on first come, first served basis to have them unmute and ask their question or make their comment. Once they're finished, we'd ask you to go back to be muted and we'll move through all the people who have questions. The other key point, this is a general webinar on how to get a PHRF certificate. So we won't be discussing particular ratings or rating issues for specific classes or sailboats. So this is how you raise your virtual Zoom hand. You find the little participants button, you click on it, and then you go down here and you click on raise hand. There's some other time, depending on how you configured it, it may be in other places, but if you click on raise hand, it shows on the screen and it gives us a list, and we have the order in which you raised your hand, and we'll work your way through that. A little bit about LOOR. Lake Ontario Offshore Racing is a component of the Port Credit Yacht Club, and we hold the Susan Hood Trophy Race, the Lake Ontario 300 Challenge Race, and every 2 years, people want to go around twice, so there's the LO 600, and we also have the Lake Ontario Shorthanded Racing Series, which is a 6-race series of day races and an overnight race. So for more information, you can go to our website or email us there. The session overview for tonight is the introduction, and then we're going to be discussing specific situations about getting a PHRF certificate, an existing class in the PHRF-LO database, a new class to Lake Ontario, so not in the PHRF-LO database, modifications to the existing class, and sailboats from a PHRF region outside PHRF Lake Ontario. Then we'll have some key tips and a wrap-up questions. The panelists tonight are Adam Farkas. Adam, why don't you introduce yourself? You're still on mute, Adam.
I managed to unmute myself.
Yeah.
I'm here as one of the assistant chief handicappers for PHRF Lake Ontario. That's my main role. Otherwise, most people know I'm an active sailor out on the lake, and I see the boats and I know them fairly well.
Michael Brown.
I'm the club handicapper for the National Yacht Club. I'm also a district chair for a group of yacht clubs, Toronto West. And along with Adam, I'm on the PHRF Lake Ontario Central Council. I'm also a avid sailor and racer, and have done many of the LOOR events.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Again, my name's Graham Dougall, and I'm the race officer for LOOR, and I'm the person who reviews all the entries for their PHRF ratings to make sure they're valid and have a certificate. And if they're not there, I have to go bug the entrance to get them. So that's why we're doing this, is to help make it easier for people who need certificates to understand what they need to do and how much lead time there is. Then we'll just give a quick couple of words about PHRF and PHRF Lake Ontario. Adam or Michael, do you want to mention what PHRF is?
I can quickly address the stands for Performance Race Racing Fleet. That's the name. The PHRF handicaps are initially assigned based on whatever knowledge we collect about the boats from manufacturers, sailmakers, etc. But then after a while, there's enough race data collected, and based on race data, then we assess, reassess, adjust the handicaps for the boat so it's equitable. A perf handicap is supposed to be in the middle of the performance of the same class boats. That's the simplest way to put it. If a boat class exists in our database, all we need is the sail dimensions, and then we put it through our formulas, and handicap is generated for the boat.
Okay. And there's a couple of links there, especially for new people to help you guide you through the process that I would suggest you look at after this session. This is not a technical session. There is a more technical session that's coming up on the 27th that's put on yearly by Perf Lake, Ontario. This year it's being held virtual. It's for novice and existing club handicappers and for potential and existing certificate holders. So if you're interested in it, you can register for it. The links were there, and we'll be sending out the presentation in a couple of days, so you'll be able to click on the link to register. And then there's one key technical detail that we need to understand before we go forward. And Adam, could you want to comment on the class boat and the standard boat?
Very good. A class boat is defined as a boat produced by one or more manufacturers with the intent of producing a number of essentially identical boats with respect to rig, hull, keel, rudder configuration. When a class of boat is available with different choices of mast height, keel type, etc., these combinations shall constitute a separate class. And I've been quoting words from our handicapper's manual, which is available on the Perf Lake, Ontario website. Just to continue with this, quoting these highlights, a standard boat is defined as either a class or custom boat in top conditions with good equipment, 155% Genoa, 180% flying sail, this is spinnaker, a flying sail attachment point or otherwise a class-defined sprit, a standard mast, and an engine able to power the boat at hull speed, fitted with the boat. And for inboard installation, a folding prop is considered standard. For an outboard powered boat, retracting the outboard is standard for racing. And the height of the attachment point of the spinnaker may be changed. This is different from some of the other handicapping rules. We are rating spinnakers on air only. That's about it. I very highly recommend to go into the Perf Lake, Ontario website, go through the manual, because there's a lot of useful information for owners to understand the boat, what is a standard boat, and how we handicap it. Just one more thing to the standard boat. When you see the standard boat handicaps, or SP, or speed potential, that is not necessarily the boat the way it is configured for actual racing. And this is because all handicaps are brought back to the standard speed potential. That is, as I mentioned, 155% Genoa and 180% flying sail. But boats like J105s, J80s, etc., have different configurations for racing, and those boats are then handicapped for their actual speed potential, or ASP.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to go through each of the types. So Michael, would you want to discuss the process of what happens if somebody has a boat that's already in the PHRF-LO database and what they need to do with getting a handicap? And I can go to the website if you want me to bring anything up on the website.
Well, basically, when you're new and you've got a boat and you'd like to go out and get a PHRF certificate, we're looking for three different things. One is just some contact information. We need to know who you are, what club you're from. You know, there's nothing too complicated in there, address, cell phone number. The second one, which we've looked at, is we need to know what type of boat you have. So the model of your boat is what we call the class of your boat. And, you know, for a lot of it, you know, people say, well, I have a CNC 27. Well, we could have a CNC 27 Mark 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And those we do separate out into different classes. And although the boats may end up having the same rating, we do put them down as being different just by the class. On top of the boat that you have, we also need to know sail number or hull number. Most times when you're racing, the race committee does require that you have sail numbers up, that your sail numbers hopefully match from sail to sail, and that they're readable by the race committee as you go by them on the finish line. Then there's the third part. Can anyone actually see that application form, or is it
See if I can blow it up.
too small?
Can you see the form now?
Looks good for me.
Okay.
So in that section where we have boat information, you know, we are looking for what class to put you in. Sometimes it helps if, you know, if the boat was renamed and we have information from the boat on its previous name, so, or by sail number. There is a little checkbox in there under yacht class, which is one design, ODR, one design rating. Note, there are a lot of one designs out there. A few of them PHRF recognizes, and we have a specific rating for that one design class, but not all of them. So there is on the website in one of the manuals, there's a list of the boats that we have listed as a one design. If you want to be a one design, there is a requirement that your boat actually is in one design format. So if the one design class says these are the only two sails you're allowed to have, and you check that box, then we are expecting that your boat has those two sails. The next section is a little bit harder to fill out. Effectively, what we're looking for is things like your sail plan. You know, are you flying spinnaker? If so, do you have a symmetric, asymmetric? Do you have both? We're looking for the sizes of those sails. We're looking for possibly the length of your spinnaker pole. If you don't have a spinnaker pole, we're looking for the length of the bowsprit on the boat. You know, there's information in there about the backstay, and there's information in there of how to fill out and size the main. The website is pretty good. There's some sections in there that show how to measure sails. In a lot of cases, PHRF-LO is attempting to follow the same format as some of the other rating systems in the world. So if you look at something, I'll get Adam to correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to try to say that PHRF-LO will measure the sails the same way, say, as ORC measures sails. Most of the sail makers around will be able to do this. I expect if you get a new sail, they'll either come with a measurement sheet. They may come with a ORC sticker on them, and those numbers are what we require. Further, we need to know what type of propulsion you have. So you know, if you have an inboard and it has a shaft coming out of it, we would need to know if it's a fixed 2-blade, a fixed 3-blade, whether it's a folding or feathering. And, you know, possibly if there was some options on your boat, say for the mast, whether you have an option of it being aluminum or carbon fiber. Obviously, this may raise a lot of questions about how to measure the sails and whatever. That, if you are interested in, the PHRF-LO is having a training session. And this detail is covered quite well there with examples. We can answer any questions tonight if you have them. But if you have an interested in digging into that, tonight's not the night for it. The PHRF-LO training course is. And then at the end, we get a couple of numbers coming up. You get a rating based on flying sail, so that's with spinnaker, and you get a rating based on non-flying sail. You can actually just have a non-flying sail, white sail rating if you don't have spinnakers. If you have spinnakers on your boat, you'll end up getting both of them. So later, if there's any questions on this, we'll try to cover it the best as we can. But to apply for and get your PHRF certificate, this is the minimum. We require all of the information on this form. This form is on the PHRF-LO website. Graham just brought it up, and you would fill that out and give it to your club handicapper, or you would work with your club handicapper to get it filled out.
Okay.
And that's it for me, Graham.
I would like to add just one little detail to this to help people who are looking for, they're trying to get their certificate. The PHRF Lake Ontario database contains something in the order of about 1,500 boats. So if you're interested whether your boat is in that database, again, you can go to the website, and there's a special drop-down menu where you can search for a class, for the classes or your class that you're interested in, and see if that exists in the database. And I mention this because if that boat does not exist, or that class does not exist, then you're under a slightly more complicated procedure we will touch upon a little bit later.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So somewhere it's here.
It's further over to the right under searches and queries.
Ah.
And then class query.
Class query, yeah.
Okay. One of the things I think you were mentioning when we discussed it is the naming. You've got to be correct about your naming in there. So we'll see what happens when you get CNC. There's a whole bunch in there. So you have to then find out which one is yours. Because there's 12 pages of CNCs. So at this point, if there's any questions about how to get a certificate for a class that's already defined in the PHRF Lake Ontario database, we'll entertain them. So if you could just click on your virtual Zoom hand, and we'll get you to unmute, and we'll get your question. If you have a question, just click, Howie.
Yes, thanks. So I did find my class on the website, Catalina 275 Sport. And so what would be the next step on that then?
Michael, you have to unmute yourself. There we are. So Howie, are you at a club that has a PHRF handicapper?
I am not, but I'm close to national.
Okay.
I'm part of the Maple Leaf Club. I don't belong to any club in particular. So I'm part of Sail Canada's Maple Leaf Club, which gives me racing privileges then as a home club being Sail Canada's Maple Leaf Club.
So does the Maple Leaf Club have a handicapper? Adam?
Uh, uh,
don't-
Adam, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I don't have the names in front of me of the clubs that have handicappers.
I don't
Um,
believe so, because it's really the Maple Leaf Fund. It's not a club as such. You're paying for the right to race.
Correct. It's it's one of those original virtual clubs
Right.
ahead of its time.
Well, okay. So basically, you are the exception case. So it's good that you're on tonight. You would need to go to the PHRF-LO website. You would need to find that application form, the PDF.
Yes.
You would need to download that and fill it out as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You are the exception that you would be then dealing with PHRF-LO directly, and not through a handicapper. Generally, everyone does go through the club handicapper. I guess you're the exception to that, which makes the rule. I have at National, I have helped people at marinas or boats like the Ontario, the blind sailors, fill it out.
Yes.
So, you know, the closest club to you, the handicapper, may be able to help you out and may be able to get that application form filled for you. Then you would apply directly to PHRF to see if you can get a certificate. There are some other rules you have to go through, and then you would pay them directly.
Okay. Easy enough.
Just a comment is that in the Lake Ontario 300, we actually get several of these people that are members of the Maple Leaf Fund, because they're at marinas and would like to participate in the long distance racing. So yeah.
So definitely, we have a very good training course coming up with PHRF-LO. You can sign up for that, and except for the fact you're going to be sending the application into PHRF directly, not to a handicapper, everything else is the same.
Okay.
Just to add to this, it is the responsibility of the owner on an honor system to provide the correct information to PHRF Lake Ontario. In clubs, the volunteer club handicappers do assist the owners especially if there's any as a problem, and also if a new boat is coming to the lake which doesn't exist in the database.
Yeah.
So it's very important to get yourself or get whoever wants to do this really briefed up on the process. And if you want to go in the 300, and if you don't yet have a certificate, think about it. Maybe you have to get it going not less than about 6 weeks before you want to register. So it's really as early as possible to get it going.
So are there any other questions on getting a certificate if your class of boat is already in the PHRF-LO database? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the next part, which which Adam has already alluded to. Oh, is that right? I gotta go back. And that, as Adam or Michael, do you want to talk about this? Because this comes up fairly regularly in the Lake Ontario 300, because somebody has brought a new cruising boat into Lake Ontario that is not in the database. So does Michael or Adam, do you want to take this one on?
We do run into, as Adam said, I think we've got, I don't know, is it 1,500 different classes in our database, and we get a few new ones every year. The application is the same. You have to fill out all the information you can. You can write down the boat model. And at that point, we need additional information to identify what the boat is. Like we need to know hull length, displacement, the various heights of the attachment points for the sails. Some of this stuff is available from the manufacturer's specs. In some cases, there are other areas that have rated the boat already, and we can take a look at those areas and get some of the information in. What differs is that for a new class, we have to have a district meeting where the boat, where the club is that the boat that is applying to get the PHRF certificate is from. And there we have to go through it and come up with a initial rating for the boat, for the standard boat for that. And as Adam has mentioned, these meetings are not, always, every month or whatever. If we get a fair number of new standard boats coming in, it makes the meeting too long for one night. So starting early is fairly critical. Occasionally we'll start in it and we'll find that the measurements of the boat differ between, say, two different areas that have rated the boat, the manufacturing specs and what's on the web. And if that's the case, we need somebody to go out and look at the boat and do some measurements on it. We've had cases where, the European model had one spec, the model made in the US had a different spec, and the boat we got actually had a different keel than both of those. So the trick with this one is same application form, more information, more specifics about the boat, and allow us some more time, because it may be anywhere between 1 to 2 months before the district can have the meeting. After the district has the meeting, writes it all up, makes the recommendation, then it still has to go to PHRF-LO to go through the Central Council for review, which generally can be done in a week. Then we have to go through the rest of the process and rate it by the actual sails on the boat and everything and generate the certificate. So that's the difference between getting a PHRF certificate on a boat where we already have the class defined and one that we don't. And I'm good to take questions now.
Now, if you have a question on this, because this is the longest lead time, and if anybody has any questions on that, this, please raise your hand. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Tom. Unmute yourself and ask your question. Tom?
Yeah, thank you. I just have a question. I'm quite sure my boat is not on it's not rated right now, and I'm not sure even if there is any rating in Europe on this boat. I just want to know if there's a list of all particular dimensions. And you mentioned I need weight and length and height of sails. Where do I find an exhaustive list of all the different measurements that are needed?
Michael?
The usual source would be to go to back to the manufacturer's brochure.
Well, yeah, in this case, there is no such thing, I'm afraid, in this case. It was pretty much a one-off boat.
So it's a custom boat, you say? It is, yeah. Well,
I'm quite sure I cannot get that information. It's from a deceased designer.
Well, then it's pretty tough, because then you'll have to get, we need to know the displacement, we need to know what kind of propulsion you have, the beam, the hull depth, the keel depth, what kind of keel you have, the rig dimensions, and of course the sail dimensions. Okay, and well, if you have any idea, any standard class boat that your boat is similar to, and that's also very helpful. Okay. Well, I do have quite detailed surveys done and reading surveys, so I probably do have most of the dimensions that you just mentioned. Well, especially on the spars, If you don't have the dimensions, then it's easily measured. You can ask the help of your club handicapper and just put a tape to it and record it, and it will work.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, next person is Guvrav. I may have mispronounced it. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, it's Gaurav. So I have a boat which is new and it's not in the database. So it has ratings outside Lake Ontario, in Florida, Annapolis, and in Washington. But all these boats probably have different measurements. There were 3 rig sizes, minus the shortest rig. Plus, my boat also had around 2,000 to 4,000 pounds of more ballast added, and I have no idea. It'll probably have to wait. So what happens in that case?
Well, all that information about similar boats and how it's related to yours is very useful. Perf Lake Ontario is not using a very precise set of penalties about displacement, but still it's good to know if you're in the same ballpark as the manufacturer declared, or it's something really significantly different. All this information needs to be provided to the handicapper, who will take it to the central council if, as you say, the class doesn't exist on Lake Ontario. But we will be looking at the other areas handicaps for similar boats also, and that's part of the review process to determine the handicap. So I have to assume that you have some actual data on your boat, and
Yes.
maybe some sketches.
Oh yeah, I have the rig and everything, the sails measured. It's only the displacement that I'm not sure about with the extra ballast that was added.
Depends how the ballast was added. It would have to go to the handicapper and to the district if you think it's different. We're not going through here how it's used in the handicapping. It's only in the process. But if you feel that your boat is different, for instance, you can call it modified, it definitely has to go through your handicapper to the district to review it, and then to central council.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this type of certificate request? Now we'll talk about a modification to an existing class, which may break down into 2 examples. One where the existing class is already in the PHRF-LO database, and another one where it's not. So Michael or Adam, you want to go ahead with this? And before that, we just got a question from Greg. Do you want to ask your question?
I think you're about to answer my question. I repowered my boat, so I have a new engine, different engine than the factory. So you're just talking about modifications to existing class, so I'll shut up and listen.
Okay.
Michael, why don't you go ahead with this one?
You're on mute.
What we're looking for in the modifications is something that is likely to change the performance characteristics of the boat. So if you happen to change the model of the diesel motor from like a Yanmar to a Beta, but effectively it's in the same position and somewhat the same weight, that is a modification, but it's not likely to change the rating. You know, there's always exceptions to that. You know, the modifications we're looking for are things like people take a boat that, say, has a known poor design for its rudder, or the guy smashes his rudder off and he goes out and he gets a new, much better rudder. In that particular case, we take a look at the rudder and we try to ascertain if this is going to change the performance of the boat. And if so, then we create a mod class to the standard class, and we'll assign the rating to it. Things that would be modifications are things like taking the cabin top, the deck over top of the cabin, and lowering it. Anything like removing most of the interior on a boat to change its weight. Moving things like where the shrouds come down. So if your boat normally had the shrouds coming to almost the tow rail, and the shrouds get moved in by 3 or 4 inches aside or something like that, all of those would be modifications. And we would give that boat a different rating. Things that we've had to look at that ended up just being a mod boat was somebody cut the back out of their boat and put a swim platform on the back of it. We didn't particularly think that was going to change much. The weight didn't change a lot, but that was now a mod boat. We sometimes get a boat in that is a mod boat, but we don't have a standard class. So we sometimes end up with this strange thing where we don't even have the standard class, we've only got a mod boat. And then we have some classes that are design rules or box rules. So things like our boats or 8 meters or something like that. Although they do race as a one design or a box design in a class, to us, every single one of them is a mod boat. So we might say have, for the 8 meters, we may have, say, 9 different certificates for the 8 meters, and they're mod 1 through mod 9 because each of the boat is physically different.
I would like to add a couple of very good examples which are important mods. One of them is very fashionable, to change from a symmetrical spinnaker and pole arrangement to a centrally fixed bowsprit and an asymmetrical spinnaker. We have rules for it, but it's a modification to a standard. Then there is also another type of modifications that I went through myself and many other boats, where an older style fin keel is replaced with a bulb keel and different displacement for the boat. So that is a modification to a known class, so we will be dealing with the penalties on a differential basis rather than trying to determine a brand new absolute handicap. These are just examples, but there could be many others.
And I take it if these have to go through the district meeting again, so there's a lead time for it. It's not just a class boat just checking with different sails. So
that is correct. These are second performance modifying changes that need to be properly checked out.
Okay. Are there anybody questions on how to get a certificate for a modification to a boat or to its class? Okay, none right now. No more call out for that. If not, we'll move on to the last example, which probably may not be anybody on this call, but we do in the Lake Ontario 300 get sailboats coming from outside the PHRF-LO region. They have a PHRF certificate, but they do need to get a PHRF-LO certificate because the ratings are not the same between districts. So this is a process. Have to, Adam, or could you describe what needs to happen in this situation?
Yep, no problem. Again, we go back to the basics. If this boat from this other PHRF region, this class exists in PHRF Lake Ontario, all we need to do is update the handicap adjustments based on the sail plan that this boat has. And so it is the example, the first examples that needs to be followed, that an application form is filled out, the class definition is given, and the sail dimensions are given. As long as the class has not been modified from the manufacturer, then it's a relatively simple process. There's just one catch here. When a boat comes in from outside of the Ontario area, then probably this person does not have a club handicapper that is in the Lake Ontario, PHRF Lake Ontario network. So the has to be, if it's a simple process, then this owner can attempt to directly submit the request to PHRF Lake Ontario. But if there are any complications, then probably this application would have to go through the host club's handicapper and process possibly even through a central council if it's not a simple update, or if it's especially if it's a different boat that doesn't exist in our area. So it could take a long time, and any owner who wants to come in from the other areas would have to allow for a proper lead time, up to easily 6 weeks.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Are there any questions on this type of certificate request? Okay. Okay, now we're going to just go over some key tips. Start early because it's going to take you longer than you expect to get a certificate, especially if it's a class that isn't on Lake Ontario. The other thing that you'll have to worry about once you've got your certificate is, depending on how the club processes certificates, they may not be automatically renewed each year, or they might be. So half the time I have to chase down people because they come to the Susan Hood or the first loss race and their certificate hasn't been renewed because they haven't contacted their club handicapper, because the club doesn't automatically do that. So if once you get your certificate each year, make sure that you've got it renewed properly if you want to go racing. The other thing is, Adam's mentioned, it's the owner's responsibility to supply all the technical details, especially for a new class. And the PHRF lead times are based on all this, getting all this data, and that's been supplied to the club handicapper. I don't think that we can stress that enough. Correct, Adam?
That is correct. People have their own lives, they work, and to get together the necessary quorum to make these reviews and decisions, we've got to respect their availability.
Okay. Again, there's some good documentation on the PHRF-LO website that you should review, and you should get to know your club handicapper. And if you don't know who they are, there's a way of finding out, again, from the website. The other key thing is that the race may start on a specific date, but the organizing authority may require that you submit certificates for ratings a week or more before that. So that's your deadline for getting the certificate, not the start of the event. And you need to work backwards from that. So Adam said it's 6 weeks to get a certificate or more, and it's required 2 weeks before the event. So it's really 8 weeks before the event that you need to get it. Some of them, like the Chicago Mac, is like 3 or 4 weeks before the event. Again, we cannot stress enough, start early. And as mentioned, get a sailmaker certificate when purchasing a new sail, having it modified, having it serviced. And sailmakers such as North often offer 3 measurements in the spring. So check with your local sailmaker for this service. The other thing to do is make sure you get all the sail measurements, just not the ones needed for PHRF, because PHRF may add additional measurements in the future. And if you want to get a different certificate from a different handicapping system, you'll have all the measurements. You don't have to go back and get the sail remeasured. Again, start early. Okay, so now we'll go to any general questions. And there's a question we have here from Michael, and maybe somebody such as Adam, Michael, or Larry, who's from Perth Lake, Ontario as well, can answer whether the spring training seminar will be recorded.
Well, yeah, I'll try to take a stab at it. I believe that much of the material that we will be discussing would either be recorded or have already been captured in videos, especially the sail measurement techniques and rules. We have excellent videos posted on the website, which is the most labor-intensive part of the whole exercise.
Okay, a reminder again about the Perth Ontario spring training webinar that's coming up in about a week and a half, and you can go to their website to register it.
Yes.
Are there any general questions that people, Michael, you want to go ahead, and Egberts, you want to ask unmute and ask your question?
Sure. Hi, my name is Michael. Thank you very much for the seminar tonight. I guess my thought about the question for the spring training seminar was just that, you know, these webinars are a lot more human. And I find it's a lot easier to absorb the information when a human being's explaining it using simple language. You know, we're going through the process for the first time this year, and I'm finding it, you know, difficult, as you're saying, and it's taking a bit longer than I thought it was going to. But if the seminar is being hosted, it would be wonderful if it was recorded. If not, it's not the end of the world. Just thought I'd ask.
We can certainly ask for it being recorded. Much of the presentations during the training seminar will be formal presentations, such as this the slides here, and of course accompanied by talk. So I'm quite sure we can ask our host to record it and post it. But go through the website and see what information there is already, because there's considerable amount posted.
Okay, are there any other general questions people have and want to ask? Any comment or feedback? Go ahead, Larry.
Oh, okay. Let me just, can you hear me okay? Is my
Yeah, we
mute
can
off?
hear you.
Yep, you're
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Larry, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, so my name is Larry Hybers. I have the honor of being president of PHRF. I was previously the district rep for the South Shore. So I want to thank Adam and Mike for doing the work that they've done, and for the work that they do at Central Council. General cheerleading comment would be, PHRF endeavors to make the racing both as fun and as competitive as possible. So if there's a scenario where you feel PHRF is not doing you right by, have the conversation with your club handicapper. Your club handicapper would then share it with the district, which would then bring it to Central Council. And there is process available to do that. It's not intended to be a mystery rule. The credits and deficits are laid out in the handicapper manual for all to see, and it's intended to be transparent, but it also requires the honesty of all the individuals participating in doing so. So those two things make it fun and enjoyable for all of us. And again, we're trying to create an enjoyable session or an enjoyable racing that's deemed to be fair for everybody. So if you have questions about it and you don't want to have them here online, reach out to either your handicapper or your district chief, or certainly to myself, and we will certainly try and help to make sure that PHRF makes sense to everybody. So thank you very much for hosting this, Graham. This is really helpful.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other general questions or around the process that people would like to ask right now?
I would like to add just one tidbit that competitors might be interested in. since PHRF Lake Ontario is a completely transparent operation, the racers can go on the PHRF Lake Ontario website and find out the certificates of their competitors and see how they compare their certificate to their competitors.
Okay, are there any other questions people have? If not, thanks for attending. We'll be posting this recording and the presentation to the and be sending out the links to it in a couple of days. So if you want to have any questions about LOOR, there's the email address, and then here's the links for PHRF Lake Ontario itself. Some really good information about the quick guide for owners and understanding the process and how to find your handicappers. So again, thank you very much for everybody attending. And I'd like to thank Michael and Adam for participating in this panel discussion. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, and hopefully everybody will have great racing this year. Gord Jackson has a question. Go ahead, Gord. Unmute yourself and go ahead. Gord? Or George Jackson, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't have a question. I was just clapping my hands and saying thank you for doing this.
Okay.
Okay.
I would like to just add one little thing. It's PHRF. I wear another hat, and that's ORC. If anybody is interested in ORC, I'd be glad to give information on that as well. ORC is another handicapping system, a VPP type handicapping system. That's it. And
you can get Adam, you can contact Adam through the PHRF-LO website, because there's an email form for the Assistant Chief Handicappers. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. I really appreciate you setting all this up and hosting this and enabling it. Went well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, everybody again, hopefully have great racing this year.
Everybody hopes that.
And George, do you have something else that you want to comment?
No, I hope we all have good racing, and then we see you down in Kingston at Cork and on the lake.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.